to part 2 of Meet Me in the Middle. We were having a really, really good in-depth discussion with L.C. Smith. And we left off with him kind of trailing off into some of his childhood and growing up with a parent that had a mental illness. And so, Elsie, tell us a little bit more about that. We kind of cut that off a little short on the first part, but just tell us a little bit more about that as far as, you know, what that was like growing up with a parent with a mental illness.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult having a parent that has a mental illness. I think it's even more difficult having a parent with a mental illness who's not accepted the fact that they have a mental illness and haven't received the treatment that they need in order to manage it. And having young kids, and also really having people that's in your circle, in your family, who don't understand what mental illness is. So that means that there's not a sense of urgency to be able to get the help that you need. And I mean, I even have a passion when it come to that, you know, because sometimes I feel like there's a stigma. I think that it's better now than what it once was, but we struggle. You know, we had some hard times. People wouldn't know it because we don't talk about it often, and we probably didn't act like it, or we didn't seem like it. We just more so adjusted and adapted, you know. So that's one reason why, even what it is that I do dealing with youth or your circumstances, you have a control over certain things that you do, you know. So my thing was, you know, I had the freedom to probably do whatever it is I wanted to do, pretty much, you know. But I made certain decisions for particular reasons because I was thinking farther down the road, you know. And that's why I tell people that, especially our young people, that no matter what your circumstances are, you still have a certain amount of control over what happens now, because there will come a time where adulthood will creep up on you. And that's what you're preparing for. And once you get to that position, you have total control over what happens there. But to prepare up until then, yeah, there may have been some times that you didn't have new shoes for school. You may have not had the clothes that you wanted. You know, that was us. I mean, we went to Christmas without getting pretty much anything. I remember one Christmas, we pretty much, my step-grandmother lived next door, and she would have yard sales, and what they didn't sell in the yard sale, that's what they called themselves giving us. We wasn't used to that because before my mom was sick, my mom, you know, spoiled us. You know, she made sure, she may have struggled as a single mom, but she made sure that her kids was fed, we was clothed, you know, and we had, you know, plenty of stuff for Christmas, you know, we, you know, so even as kids and dealing with that, you know, that's something that we had to adapt to, but it didn't hinder me to an extent that I closed all the way off, and I was just like, this is not fair. This shouldn't be how life should be. And I just gave up. I just did what I could in order to continue to support myself, my brother. I did the best I could to look out for my mom, even though she wasn't in the right state of mind. And just I used to tell my brother, you know, dude, we have to go to school. We have to at least finish school because one day she's going to be better. But I'm thinking that I need to be able to put myself in a position that I can take care of myself, you know, take care of my family or whatever the case may be, because we lacked so much. I didn't want to be responsible in a position where I'm responsible for people and I let them down in a particular way.
Yeah, so you grew up here in Alabama, Elsie?
Yes, Huntsville, born and raised.
Okay, born and raised. Okay, I don't know if I knew that for sure either. I love that you're talking about your mama in the way of this was an illness. This was a sickness. I think mental illness still has such a stigma, and even though there's so much more education about it and so much more that is talked about, I still think people don't look at it the same way as like, well, here's a diabetic or here's somebody with a broken arm. That's an obvious sickness or chronic thing. And mental illness is still not looked at right. How did your mom get the help? Where did that come from? And yeah, tell me about that.
Oh man, we're going to be here all day. Man, so my mom, for years, she was ill. Okay. My mom used to walk up and down Pulaski Pike. She made a trail. If anybody's a native of Huntsville, if I tell them this story, they probably remember. She used to walk up and down Pulaski Pike all day and night. She just walked up and down the road. She just used to yell at cars, cuss at cars and people that's, coming, riding by, walking by. She didn't bathe. She had dreadlocks. Her hair was matted. I mean, and this was years, didn't really eat anything. It was crazy because when she did get help, I did everything. We took her to the doctor. We need to get you checked because you haven't eaten in like 6 years. You haven't done this. The only thing you did was drink drinks, But I'll get into how she ended up getting the help. So we had started to, we finally got some social workers to start coming through, and she wouldn't never talk to them, but they did subscribe some medicine. So my grandfather, I hope this is not illegal what we did. We we medicated her with the prescriptions that they gave us to help balance her mind. So the only way we could do it was to be able to put them inside her drinks that she would drink.
Oh, okay.
So there was one medicine to help with her mind, and there was one medicine to help with the side effects. And they said if you don't give her the second pill, that they don't care how sick she is, that you're gonna know it because she's gonna have to let you know that she's hurting. That's how bad it was.
Okay.
I used to manage that. I used to have to manage that like every day, and the pills didn't even dissolve either, what was crazy. But, I still broke them the best I could, shook them in the drink, closed the drink up, and she never realized it. And we did kind of see a difference. But what happened, I went on a field trip, and I was in the organization called Upper Bound. And my grandfather was in charge this time. I found this out later. I figured it out, but he didn't give her the side effect pill. With hindsight, we probably should have did that day one. So I was getting ready for work when I came back from my trip, and my mama walked into the living room, and I was just sitting on the couch. I was working at Popeyes, and she walked into the living room, and she just sat down, and she was quiet. And it threw me off. I hadn't heard my mom quiet. We went to sleep and woke up most of the time with her just in her room talking and whatever, and that threw me off. So I'm looking like, okay, wait a minute, something not right. And she asked me to take her to the doctor. So I didn't ask no questions, so I'm like, okay, let's get her to the doctor. So I didn't know where to take her. I took her to the emergency room. And she was calm. And we explained to the emergency room that she had a mental illness, and we've been trying to get her help for years. So can they please at least put us in a room? And they wouldn't do it. So eventually she got up and she started going off like she normally, will, and, cussing everybody, fussing at everybody, cussing, and walked out the place. And I'm like, man. So we went back home. So I called my grandfather, and he was next door. We had two houses next door to each other. And I called him and let him know that she had asked me to take her to the doctor. So I called the mental health center. He may have been the one who told me to. I can't remember. It may be a better accurate story somewhere else. I'm getting older, so I'm forgetting.
We're getting it.
But I called the mental health center, and the mental health center said that they had a conference that day, and every therapist, there would be no therapists or doctors, anybody available. But it just so happened that they canceled it a little bit before I called, and they said that every therapist and counselor is available at that moment.
Wow.
So I called my grandfather. He came downstairs and he called her name. He said that, and by this time she's riled up again. And he's told her that, that Elsie's going to take you to the doctor, and she just came through. He said, I got some money for you. She walked through, took the money out of his hand, walked to the car. I just followed behind and took her to the mental health center. And when I took her to the mental health center, they was already expecting us. And that was the first time that I heard my mom talk sane. In probably a good 6 years. So they gave her medication. They told her about her illness, and she accepted the fact that she did have a mental illness. She had to start taking injections, so they put her on this. So they put her on regimen as far as how many times she had to come take her shots, the pills she had to take, and things like that. So that was the first time that she actually received help to get her on the track of where she is now. So that's how we end up getting her some help. So, I mean, it was an intervention from God, considering the fact that nobody would have been available to speak with her that day. And that probably was the only place we could go to get help at the time. So I always think about, what if we wouldn't have had that opportunity? The next day would have came through, and more than likely, we probably would have continued that cycle for quite a while. So the doctor there that's how we found out about the side effect for the pill. He the one who told her. He said that's what it was, because she was hurting. She was explaining how she was feeling, and it was the side effects from the medicine, and she didn't get the other pill that my grandfather, kind of probably mixed up the pills for her. So, which was a blessing, which was great.
Wow. Wow. Did she go into the hospital or just everything outpatient?
Everything was outpatient.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, we tried to get her throughout the years of us not knowing what to do as a kid. I used to try to get her admitted. I don't know what that means and what that looks like as a kid. The only thing I know is that I wanted to give my mom some help, but they never would help her. They wouldn't even admit her in the mental health center, because they said that she would have to be doing something to harm someone, or others. So there was these different things that we learned along the way. So we really just was in a position where if she wasn't trying to hurt herself or hurt anybody else, that we had no choice but to live with it until she said that she was ready to go. So that's why we endured it for so long. We tried many times, several police encounters,
Yeah. So as we wrap up this one, and wrap up this one and go to another one, I just need to know first of all, obviously God gave you a gift to help take care of your brother, and to even just do what you did for your mom. Wow. That had to be a God-given gift. What do you feel? I know it's from God, but what helped you get through those years, especially as a kid? Well, you said you were in high school when it sort of manifested, or before high school? What helped you get through those years like that? I know you had a grandfather, but wow, how did you get through those years?
I was more so like, it is what it is. I don't have any control over this situation, but this is my life. This is what it is. I'm going to have to make the best of it. And in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that I handle my business in the areas that I have to handle my business in. So that means make sure I go to school, make sure, I graduate, make sure I have good grades. My goal was to leave and go off to college, but I wasn't able to do that. I got accepted in universities, but I knew I couldn't leave her because she still was ill. And I felt like that I was like the one person, not saying that my family didn't care and love my mom, but I was the one person who was doing everything I could to help get her the help that I knew that she needed. So it was just one of those things that for me, it is what it is. This is the life, and I'm just gonna have to do the best that I can in order to survive and come out on top. And while I'm trying to come out on top, and while I'm trying to also, one thing that motivated me also was my brother. My brother 3 years younger than me, so he may have been probably he probably was the biggest inspiration, because my thought process is, if I fall short, or if I give up, or if I throw my hands up, or if I can't handle this situation, what's going to happen with him? So that's probably was more my motivation more than anything. It wasn't like me having a mindset like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is what it is that I'm going through. It's like, this is what I'm going through. And although I'm young, I still have a little brother who's dealing with the same thing. So I did everything I could for him and it probably was minimum, but it was a lot for me being my age, you know, to be sure that life didn't seem like it was that bad. So I wanted to make sure he had the clothes he wanted, shoes that he wanted, make sure he can go on a field trip. You know, I missed out on a lot of certain things like that, you know. And some of my family don't even know it because I wouldn't even go ask, you know, because I had to always depend on somebody else to provide the funds or, you know, whatever that looks like.
Good, grateful. So no wonder you're doing Real Fathers Making a Difference. I mean, you lived it forever and you know just what to say to them. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more about this. So you guys stay tuned and come back for part 3 of this episode. See you next time.